Okay guys, welcome to the remarketing walkthrough. In this walkthrough, I'm going to show you how to create a remarketing list and also create a display marketing campaign within AdWords that uses that remarketing list that you created. So let's go ahead and get started. On the left-hand rail of the page of your AdWords account, you'll see a couple of different options, but the option that you're going to look for is Shared Library. Click that, and you can see that there's a few options for your shared library, but the option for remarketing is audiences. So click View, and then go to New Audience, Remarketing List. Now for your list definition, if you already have a remarketing tag on your website, which if this is the first time you're setting it up, you do not, you're going to need to click Define a list of visitors, and click New Tag. So a pop-up or a module is going to show up underneath that in a yellow box that says after this list we'll create that tag. But if you already do have a remarketing tag on your website, you can click the first option, and let's say if you only want it to be displayed, or you only want to create a list for somebody that viewed a web page about a particular shoe, you can enter that URL here. So for instance, shoes.com/red shoe, and that will add a list for that, and you can use that list in a remarketing ad group or campaign. Also, there's a lot more options like we talked about. This is where you can mix and match URLs. So a URL, anybody that viewed this URL and a URL that contains checkout or checkout cart, or whatever your checkout cart is where they didn't complete their purchase. That's where you can get into all these options. I'll provide a link to a list of different ways that you can mix and match these to get the most benefit out of it. But again, if this is your first time creating a remarketing list or adding a remarketing tag to your website, click Define a list for site visitors by placing a new tag on your site. Then membership duration, that's how long you want to keep them in the list. For a general remarketing list, I usually like to keep them in for about 20 to 30 days. 30 is the default. For cart abandons or for more time-sensitive lists, you're probably only going to want to need 5 or 10 days. If they're not back by then or they're not interested by then, most likely they're not going to come back. Then you just name your list. So I'm going to call this List 1, and then a description if you need it. So click Save, and then if you click List 1, you can click the tag option on the far right hand side for the definition, and that's going to be the code or the cookie that you're going to place on all your web pages right before the body tag closes. So there's an insertion guide if you need it. If you're comfortable enough with the back end of your website, you can do this yourself, or you can send it into your programmer and they can add this literally within probably 2 minutes. So once you have that, and once it starts collecting information and you return to your audiences, you'll see the list size grow. So once you start picking up a few people in that list, you'll know that it's placed properly and that it's working, and then you can go ahead and start to create a campaign. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you create a new campaign, it has to be a display network campaign. And then you'll see some of the similar options like in the display, but we're going to need to click Remarketing. And then focus on clicks. And for an example, I'm just going to use $5 per day for this. Then you can again target by language, location, device within your list, but that's going to limit your audience. So just be aware of that. And then add scheduling and delivery, if you want to change any of those options based on the time or how you want your ads displayed and when you want them displayed. But for this example, I'm just going to show you the basic options. So after you select that, you click your default bid. For this, I'm going to use $1, and then select my audience. So List 1 is the one that I just created. I know that my tag is working well. It's on my site and properly working. And then you can even further refine it if you want. Like in the display marketing lesson, we talked about how you can add topics, and this just what you're doing is selecting topics within your list or selecting keywords within your list. Again, it's going to cut down on your reach and your audience within your remarketing campaign, but just know that that is an option. and then creating your ad group. Same exact thing that we just talked about in the display walkthrough. You upload an ad. I'm going to do the leaderboard, the 728 by 90 pixel ad, and call this leaderboard. The display URL www.mom.com/skincare, and then that's going to be the destination URL too. So that's where they're going to go when they click this ad. And then if you want to add another ad, obviously you can create new ad, click create new ad, or done, and then your remarketing campaign is all set up, and you can see how it's performing. Another thing to note, remarketing campaigns most of the time will perform better than display campaigns, but again, not as well as your search ads. Most of the time it's because people are familiar with your site. They've been to your site, they've been engaged on your site, so they're familiar with your advertisements or your branding, so you're going to have a higher click-through rate. Not all the time, but that's just something to note and something to understand when you're creating your remarketing campaign. So that wraps up creating remarketing ads and the walkthrough.